Welcome back once again to the Forge. Today we're doing Bubble Bobble. You have now seen how to change the intro colors, outer lines, the text outline, and font colors manually, and how to do the auto-colorize thing. You've seen how to change the segment colors a bunch of times. So we're not going to do that anymore. I'm not going to make you watch me do that 100 times. You've seen how to go to the finalize and save and change the preview image and the name. Don't worry about that anymore. Well, worry about it, but I'm not going to show you anymore. From now on, we're focusing entirely on the mascots themselves. I will still upload the song, though, because I want to listen to it. Today is Bubble Bobble. Here's what we got to work with. There's a lot. First thing we're going to do is upload Bubs 4 frames. I'm just going to do them all at once because I don't care if they're fucked up. There's only 4 frames. Going into the loaded frames, we can see that they loaded in the right order, so awesome. He's going a little too fast. Animation sequences. Sorry, no frame delay. That's more like it. I'm going to preemptively sprite stuff up. Or global sprite stuff up. A lot. Like all 5. 5. Good. By the way, these are just suggestions. I have to put the slider within a scale range that makes sense. But if you want to scale bigger than 5, you can go as high as you want by just typing in the number you want. The number usually goes up higher than the slider does. So if you wanted them to be 400, it doesn't matter. You can do that. But the sliders do have a range they have to stick in. They're just what I consider the useful range, but not necessarily the only range that you want to use. So anytime you need to make it bigger or smaller, just type in the number you want. It's fine. I just smudged up my glasses so hard. Whatever. I don't like where you are. Oh, that's perfect. Okay. Alright, so we got Bubble Bobble Man here, and now we need all the bubbles. That's like the whole mascot, there's just him and the bubbles. So we're gonna start, name it, name the thing, name, always name. Name it. So we're gonna call this Bubbles. And we're gonna just start with one of them. We have all of this stuff to work with, we're gonna start with just these 2 pictures for the moment. I changed my mind, I don't want those 2. I'll show you why in a minute. I'm getting rid of these. You can remove frames from here if you want. I want these 2. I need to get back up. I want these 2. Because I didn't know how fast I needed it to be. That bubble was just flashing, and that was not helpful for me. I wanted to know how fast I wanted this to be. There, that's good. I like that. I might change that again, actually. Yeah, never mind. Instead of doing that, I'm gonna duplicate the frames. Because I might need something faster than that, so we'll just double these up. So as you can see, we're back in the beautiful animation sequence here. Doubling up the frames to make it slower instead of changing the frame delay, just in case I need something faster. Because if you set this to 20 so that he's slow, you can slow things down further, but you can't speed them up further. So it's better to have the animation frame delay be faster, and then double up on frames for slower things, so you have room to make them faster if you need them. You can do the same thing by making this 5, and then doubling them up again. So now he's the right speed here, and I have all the room in the world to make things go this fast. I don't think I'll need it to be that fast, but you know what? I'll just leave it that way. Perfect! Alright, so how are we going to make this happen? First things first, these need to be behind him, so remember you can drag them around to reorganize. Secondly, we need them to show up at random and go upwards. Now, I gave you a preview of the particles in motion system earlier, in that it can move things around. So let's just enable the particle stuff, go into movement, constant motion, Y this time, and throw it into the negative so it moves up. That's cool and all, but it's always spawning from the same position. We don't want that. Not to mention the fact that it's spawning in the screen, so that's super ugly. If we were like to move it out of the way here, go into general, move it over here, you'll see that it always starts at the same spot. That's no good. Now we could move it down, and it'll move up from there. And that's fine, but it's still the same spot. We want it to be a different spot every time. And that is what the spawn position section of the particles in motion is for. It will ignore your actual default spawn section when you use this, so you can use this to set it wherever you want. Now X is sideways, Y is up and down. We want it to be anywhere in the X axis, so we're going to set that to 0 and this all the way up to like 1024. So now we can see that it's still ignoring the Y sections, because I haven't done anything with these, and starting at the Y section of the starting value here. So if I did this, for example, you'll see that it's starting in the middle now. So it's best to make sure you set both of them, so that you know where it's going to be. So we want it to be way down here. And that's looking better. Alright, cool. Worth noting, however, these can be set too far. Sprites will not show up with the particle system once they go out of the dead zone. Just for a quick preview here, there is a dead zone down here you can set. I don't know if those are supposed to set to 0 default, but I'm just going to leave it at that and say yes. But you can set the dead zone to be wherever it wants, or wherever you want it. So if you wanted them to only be, like, in this area, you could set it to just that area. But the most important thing is that the dead zone starts at the edge of the screen plus the width of the sprite. So if you wanted it to start at the bottom, you might accidentally set the spawn position too low. And if you do that, it will not spawn at all because it's immediately spawning outside of the dead zone and trying to respawn. So you have to keep that in mind. You need it to be far enough down that it won't be visible when it comes up, but not so far down that it doesn't show up at all. Regardless, that is the spawn position, and we have now made it start going up from different positions. And that's what we want. But there's only one of them. We want a bunch of them. So that's where the general tab comes in. Let's set the quantity to something that's not 1. Let's try 20. Alright, well, that doesn't look quite right because they're all kind of spawning at the same time. We have two options here. One is to set a render offset. Well, actually, yeah, one is to set a render offset. So you can do that, but that's not what I consider the correct option. What the render offset does is it just, like, for each one of these quantity, it will offset, or it will pre-render, like, 40 frames, for example, before rendering the rest of them. But that could still not work out the way you want it to, so my suggestion is to go back to the spawn position and not actually do this, but rather let it spawn anywhere on the screen. Wait, is that what I wanted to do? No. No, that was wrong. Ignore that. We do want them to spawn down here. What we want to change is not where they're spawning from, because they will spawn in the middle of the screen. We want to change how long they are taking to spawn. There are two options for this. One is to change the lifespan, because you can change the... not the lifespan, the respawn. You can change the respawn delay to be different amounts, so that when they get to the top, they will take longer or less long to come back onto the screen, and that will spread them out. I'm sorry, this could... I know this is going to be a confusing episode, but there's a lot of stuff you can do with particles. But I don't like doing that one, I like doing this one. I want the movement speed to be different. So we had previously set it to -4, and that's just the base movement. Let's not set that one to anything. Rather, let's set the min and max. We want it to move at least 4, and up to, let's say, 8. That way, they're always moving at different speeds whenever they spawn, so that will spread them out naturally. And keep in mind, I know it looks goofy when they first show up every time it resets, but you won't be seeing that, because if we reset the screen, or the wheel, they will have already been moving by the time we even see the screen. So you won't even see that pre-render stuff. And if you were worried about that, you could go ahead and set the render offset as well. And that will help spread them out as well. Nothing wrong with that. So we've got a bunch of bubbles. They're coming at different size or at different times, but we're not done yet. We want them to be different sizes too. That's where the scale tab comes in. I want it to be a minimum of, I don't know, like 0.8. Keep in mind this is a multiplier. So like 10 is 10 times bigger than the original sprite size. So I'm thinking 0.8-ish and 1.2 maybe. Actually, no, let's say 1 at the maximum and 0.6 at the minimum. There we go. Now we got different sized bubbles and a bunch of lag going on for some reason. I don't know what that's about. I must have upset something. I'm not gonna worry about it. Usually when lag shows up, you can reload and it's fine. Yeah, I don't know what that's about. Did I just make it mad with a scale? Nope, it's just mad in general. This would be a good time to save and reload, but I'm just doing this as an example, so I'm not going to. Because there's only a few things left we need to do. One of them was... Well, no. Actually, we're done with particles, really, except for one thing. But we can't do that one thing yet. You may notice that these bubbles are all the same thing. That's because I only loaded the 2 images out of all of these images. So I'm going to load the rest of these now, 2 at a time. This is going to get real ugly for a second. These last 4, I think, go together. Maybe not. Alright, so we got all this crazy stuff going on. And that's not really what we want, is it? So what can we do about this? Well, in the animation section again, we're going to make a sequence for each pair of these things. We need 0, 1. We need 2, 3. We need 4, 5. We need 6, 7. We need 8, 9. We need 10, 11. And we need 12 and 13. So now we have all these bubbles with all these different effects they're doing. I want these to be slower, like I had it before, so I will slow these down. That's fine. That's good. That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. And that's fine. So we have all these animations now of different particles, but we can only choose one animation at a time. Now you may have noticed it when I was scrolling through stuff earlier, but we did have an option in the particles for this, and we're going to go back there now. We have all these sequences. We have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, so that is 7 worth, but it starts at 0. So if we go back into the particle system here, you will notice that there is a section at the end that says animation. Start animation, sequence min, and max. So if we set this from 0 to 6, suddenly every particle is spawning as something different because it's choosing one of those animations at random. And that's it. That's all we had to do. So that is a look into the particle system and everything it can do. There's a lot more it can do beyond what I've shown, but all of these sections are pretty straightforward. Just to go back over exactly what has happened on this mascot. We made we made Bob rather, and he's just a simple animation. Then we added bubbles. The correct order of this would be to have loaded all of the bubbles. So we loaded all of these images, and then we went into image and animation. We chose a frame delay we liked. We made a sequence for each individual idea. Like the guy in the bubble, the other guy in the bubble, this bubble, that bubble, this little guy, the other, like, purple little guy, the flashy bubbles. We made an animation for each one of those. A new animation sequence by hitting Add Sequence. And we just left it at that. Then we went into Particles. Enabled it. Upped the quantity, because we didn't have enough at the time. Just like one isn't really cutting it. No. We need more. So I decided 20. We set a pre-render offset so they don't just all show up at the same time. Because that works well. We changed the spawn position to be all the way at the bottom, roughly, and anywhere from 0 to 125. If we made this shorter, they would only spawn in the middle, for example. And you can set it outside the bounds a little bit, too, if you want. So we did that, so that it would spawn at the bottom, anywhere along the bottom. We set the scale so that it was between 0.6 and 1 times the original size. You can set this to anything, like I said. They can get huge if you want them to be. We set the movement for the XY constant motion, the Y constant motion specifically, between -4 and -8. Negative goes up and left, positive goes down and right, depending on whether you're using X and Y. And there's also a cap. There's a reason you might want to use that, and I will show you in a second. Then after that, we set the... No, I didn't do that. We set the animation sequence between 0 and 6, which allows it to use all of these. If we set it only between 0 and 3, or 1 and 3, or 2 and 3, we're only getting those two now. So it was between 0 and 6. And if you set it outside of the range, you might get nothing. So don't. Make sure you're setting it to the right amount. I think I have it set so if it's out of the range, it will just choose within the range anyway, but just in case, you might want to make sure you're in the right range. Alright? You can also change the frame delay. Like, if you wanted it to be different speeds automatically, you could do that. But we didn't in this case. And that was it. The only thing we haven't done is color the wheel and all that, but you know how to do that. I'm not going to show you that in a minute. And that is the basic look into the particle system. And like I said at the beginning of these tutorials, don't be scared to F around and find out. If you saved this right now, there would be no danger of it breaking. So let's set the spawn position to anywhere. And then put on some more movement. Let's try gravity, for example. If we put on a little bit of gravity, just a tad, you'll see that now they're starting to go up, but then the gravity overpowers the Y constant motion, and they start to fall. It would look better if it wasn't lagging so hard at the moment, but I'm not going to reload it. Actually, you know what I can do? One sec. Welcome back to Bubble Bobble, the proper one. Here's how it looks at full speed, with the right settings. Same exact stuff I just did. There's nothing different here. The default... I mean, they're named default because that was before I actually put the name thing in there. But you'll see in the particles in motion, or rather in the image and animation, we've got all those loaded frames. We've got the animation sequences like I had them before. A little bit different, but they're all in there. The particles have 20, exact same number. There's a little bit of scale from 0.5 to 1. There's a constant motion for Y in the upwards direction of 4 to 11. And that's really it. And then there's the animation thing, which is between 0 and 6. It's the exact same shit I just did for the actual mascot, except now it's colored. So like I was showing before, if we put on gravity, it will fight the upwards motion. and do a really cool effect of it looking like a water fountain kind of thing. So like I was saying, F around and find out. You don't know what you'll enjoy doing with this stuff until you've actually gave it a try. There's so many things that this can do that you won't even think of until you've actually tried doing it. We can even put gravity in the negative so it'll go up faster and look like a whirlwind. It's so much fun to just mess around with this stuff, so I still suggest highly that you do so. So, that concludes the easy stuff. This is all the simple stuff that I've shown you so far. Just to recap everything and go back over the little overview we've got. Intro, I've only really shown you how to color stuff, like the colors here, and here and here. There's not a lot else going on here except for pulse options. If you want to know what pulse options are, I will show you. Not on here though, I will show you in segments. So in segment color here, we've got this pulse option. What does that do? It does this. You can change the speed. Correction. Oh wait, no, that's because there's some things, by the way. This is a great example, I'm glad this came up. There are some things that will not change until you reset the wheel. This is one of them. There's a reason for that. But once you change the wheel, like once you reset it, it'll actually show up. This is a good reason why you might want to have this turned on, so you can just see the change immediately. But there are some things that won't change until you reset, just keep that in mind. Like the pulse, if I put the pulse intensity down, it'll be less of a seizure. So that's what pulse does. And there's a pulse section for almost every color section. And that's almost everything that's in here. You can change the font of stuff. You can change like the spin out and snap out options, like the start delay and stuff. And that's all that's really in intro. Audio, the only thing we haven't gone over is beat map. Maybe I should go over that pretty soon. I can't yet because I haven't shown you the most important part of it. The sprites have all sorts of stuff we haven't even looked at yet. Most of it is self-explanatory. We have the scale options. We've got the rotation options. You can turn off rotate centered to have it like at a different focal X, but I haven't gone into that. You can sync the rotation to the wheel so that it rotates with the wheel, or to the sine and inverse sine for the sine and cosine. Sine and cosine are just this. That's all that does. Cosine goes up and down. So if you have all of these set to 2, and like 200, they will go in a circle. Let's do 20 because it's faster. That's how you make something move in a circle. If you want it to go the other way, you can flip the sine. Or the cosine. So that's all sine and cosine are really for. Although there is a cool thing you can do with that I might show you later. It's related to the this. And this is no, you know what? This is a great time to show that because I've just shown you the particle system. Let's make this 10 so that it's going slower. Here's one thing that's outside of the particle system that you can do. So on Bub here, we're going to enable the particle stuff, right? So that there's going to be 10 of him. You can tell there are 10 of him, because if I set the render offset, there they are. But that's not the correct way to make him go in a circle if you want multiples of him going in a circle with sine and cosine. The correct way is to go up to sine and cosine and offset the sine and cosine by quantity. So it will be perfect. You won't have to worry about getting the render offset just right. You could do that and be all like, nope, 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 nope. Well, it's kind of right, maybe. You don't have to do that. You can just turn on sine and cosine, turn on the particle system, offset sine and cosine by quantity in their section here. And that's how you get a perfect circle of something go in a circle. It's pretty cool. If you change the speed of one of them, or the strength, they can do weird stuff, like the bees in Zelda. So this is just a good chance to show you that that's a thing you can do, I guess, at the end of the particles tutorial. So there's all sorts of cool stuff you can do with the particles and the sine and cosine. if you don't offset one of them by quantity, they'll just kind of go in a line. So that's how you get, like, this kind of effect. Now, if you want them to do something more fancy than this, feel free to use the render offset. If you want them to not be going in a circle, I mean, you can use the render offset to kind of make it a trail. That's one of the main reasons I put the render offset there, in fact, to do things like this. Pretty cool, right? So that's most of the easy stuff. Just going over the sprite stuff here. So general is pretty self-explanatory. You can move stuff around. You can flip the sprite and the sprite rendering objects. You can render it in the foreground. What does that mean? In front of this wheel. That's what that means. There's a trail layer I have not gone over. I might go over that at the end after you're more experienced with all of this. But it does this. Actually, you can't see it because there we go. This is what the trail layer does. It's just its own layer behind the wheel. So if you want something to have a weird kind of ghosting trail, that's in the global stuff. I guess that's all I really had to tell you. You can change the fade percent, so if you put it way up, there's less of a fade. If you put it way down, it stays there forever. So that's some of the cool stuff you can do here. You can flip things, you can flip them horizontal, not that you can tell on Bud here. You can change the opacity so that it's kind of ghosty. You can tint it a different color. And that's most of this stuff in general. We've gone through all of image and animation. Scale is self-explanatory, rotation is self-explanatory. Sine and cosine you're looking at right now. We've gone over most of the particle stuff. You can change the scale, the movement, the rotation, like the start and max rotation here. How much it's rotating over time. And movement, we kind of went over. There's like gravity and wind is what's making it do this whirlwind stuff. The constant motion is just it going at a constant speed. Acceleration is it speeding up or slowing down, and it's affected by friction, which is right here. So if you had something moving like upwards like these... Let me reset to show you what I mean by this, actually. We're getting into a lot of weird stuff at the end of this regarding the particle system and what it can do. So these are set to go up at a constant rate. If we instead of doing constant motion, which is currently at -4 to 11, if we instead did acceleration, -4 to 11, it does the same thing. No difference, except for one very key thing, like I said, friction. You can put a friction on these so that they will eventually stop. The higher the percentage, the harder the friction affects them. So we have to compensate. It's pretty strong. I don't remember why it goes all the way up to 100, but there's a good reason. But it's like just a tiny bit of friction works wonders. Let's have this go at like -200, so that they're just warping around. Actually, I think it's because it's saving the acceleration. Max. Yeah, there we go. Give it a little bit of constant motion, so it will keep going. Yeah, it's just being kind of picky. There are situations where this is very useful to go all the way up, because it does some cool stuff, but just know that it's a thing. If you ever need it. That was a terrible example of that, I'm sorry. Anyway, we went over most of this. We didn't go over target point and directional motion. Maybe we'll go over that in the future. These are cool. If you have these on, the sprites will face the direction they're moving. You can't tell because they were already facing up, but if I put on face up and down movement, and then put on a bunch of gravity, you will see them change. See? There we go. You can see them kind of turning back around to face down. That's what these do. And then there's the lifespan. If you have lifespan on, they kind of fade out. Well, as you can see, they're just kind of disappearing. If the lifespan's bigger, they will fade out. Or, well, never mind, you have to turn that on. So that's what lifespan does. Respawn is how long it takes to respawn. If you have disable respawn, they won't come back at all. And then, of course, the dead zone is exactly where they can exist. So if I actually put the top border way down, you can see that now they can't exist above here. And then there's the animation thing, which I showed earlier. So that is basically everything there is to know about particles. Parallax, we've already seen what that does. Yes, it works on particles. And then there's these four things. We'll get into those later, I guess. Wavy's kind of complicated. The hitbox can do some cool stuff, but you can see them. I'm not going to get into that right now. These just draw on top of the sprite, or behind it. So if you want, like, rectangles behind your shit, you can have that. You can have it in front of them. So you can draw rectangles, you can draw polygons, and you can draw lines. And then there's text. You can have text. That's pretty much all self-explanatory. So, all we haven't really gone over is wavy stuff, which isn't really important. Hitbox stuff, which is kind of advanced. And the gearbox. The gearbox is where all of your hopes and dreams go to die. That will make your life a miserable living hell, and that's where we have to go to do anything more advanced than we have done so far. So, that's the basic tutorial done. We haven't looked at how to do arrow and button stuff. I guess there could be one more. I'm gonna cut the video here because it's going kind of long and I'm rambling. But we'll go over some basic other stuff in one more kind of interim video before we even look at gearboxes, because they are the worst. So that's it for now. We've kind of like had a crash course on particle systems and the cool stuff it can do. See you next time.